able to select the language you would like to follow this meeting in. And this same session will be being transferred right now via streaming. And for all of us who will be looking at that channel, they will also be able to select their language of their choice in the upper part, in the same page, in the same web page. The first block of this fair that has just completed, we had a talk about behavior, and now the purpose of these parallel rooms is to have a space for exchanging good practices and lessons learned amongst the different FAO teams and their benefits. And the idea is that all the good experiences can be shared, and therefore can be inspiring for other teams to be able to replicate and apply in other territories. Before we begin, I would like to give you some orientation and indications about this session. We're also broadcasting this via YouTube on the FAO website Americas, and also through our Twitter account at FAO Americas. And we would like you to also comment on this event on the social media with the hashtag form. And please give your comments and questions on the Zoom chat, and where we will be attentive to be able to pick up your questions and then present them at the Q&A session at the very end of this session. And we would also like to invite you to keep your mics muted, just so that we don't interrupt the meeting.
Que si usted desea cambiar de sala durante la sesión, no hay problema.
If you need to switch and go to another room, no problem. You just have to identify the link of the room that you would like to attend, and then you can go into another room using another link. And so we're going to begin now. And I'd like to thank all of you who are present with us this morning, in particular those who will be presenting their experiences very generously. And the whole team for their experiences, that because they have cooperated to make sure that this was an important experience and that can be shared today. And I also thank in advance the commentators and all of the audience who are here and will be participating. So thank you very much. This session has 3 moments.
Nosotros vamos a escuchar 3 experiencias inspiradoras de la región.
Firstly, we're going to hear from 3 experiences that are very inspiring that have taken place in the region, one from Ecuador, one from Venezuela, and one from Chile. Some of the speakers will be presenting some short videos, and each video will be broadcast by the producers themselves who are here with us, so the speakers don't need to do anything for that. The second part of this session has to do with listening to 2 commentators who have been invited here to this meeting for this session. And the last part, hopefully we'll have a reasonable time for that. We're going to be monitoring the times. That would be dedicated to questions and answers from the whole audience. And so we can begin right now. And first, we're going to listen to the Ecuadorian representative, and who's going to be sharing their experience. And the name of this is Conservation and Sustainable Use for Good Living or Living Well in Napo, Ecuador. And he will be presenting the experience. That will be Kelvin Cueva. He's a forest engineer. He's the national coordinator of the project for the Ecuadorian project. And welcome, Kelvin, for being here with us. And
en total, incluyendo el video que va a presentar al
Kelvin
final.
has 10 minutes all in all, and including the video that he will be showing at the end. And I will tell you when you have only 2 minutes left. Kelvin, thank you, and you have the floor. The Napo province is in Ecuador, in the area of the transition area between the Andean region and the Amazon region, precisely at the, the part where the transition towards the plains of the Amazon are. So this is a province that is a buffer zone, sort of, and it's in the northern part of the Amazon region of Ecuador, where this experience took place ever since mid 2015 through mid 2021. As I mentioned, this province in its context is a very rich region in biodiversity, and precisely it is in a transition area of two hotspots of diversity, both the tropical Andes and the area that goes all the way to the Amazon basin, where we all know that it has a huge biodiversity. And precisely then in this province, we have the birth of one of the main tributary rivers to the Amazon River, which is the Napo River. And because of the richness of the biodiversity there, as you can see on the map, we have many protected areas that are in this province. Approximately 70% of the province has protected areas, and that's where we have one of the biosphere most important reserves in Ecuador. In addition to this, we also have a very important biodiversity, cultural biodiversity represented by the Quichuas and Quijos populations, and in the parts closer, more extreme of the Amazon, it's we have the Guarani people. So we have a biological and cultural diversity, which is very important, and we have extremely impressive landscapes in this area. But in the project, we did have some important challenges, and the map that you can see here on the screen is in fact a map of the zones where you see deforestation. In the Napo province, we have three areas where we're facing deforestation problems, and that is because of a weakness in institutional weakness in the environmental area and productive systems that haven't been managed in a sustainable manner, and also because of the very limited subsistence means of subsistence for the local population. So this means that puts pressure on the forest and causes a deterioration, a process, and gives rise to a deforestation process. And this is with this was our challenge, and we needed to try to revert this problem to a better context for conservation and local development. And so the main challenge that we have in this province is, with all of this richness and biodiversity, but also with the intention to generate better livelihood methods, and a proposal had to propose something that will help conservation and then also improve production, and so to institutionalize this and to be able to use these resources in a sustainable manner and to generate a better livelihood for the locals. And this is supposed to be articulated to institutionality so that we could create some policies that will be lasting in time for this local proposal. And so to a certain extent, we started a process that is now beginning to bear fruit, and we're seeing the local transformation, in fact. One of the ways in which we can respond to this question and that challenge was, first of all, identifying the local innovations that were already there in the province of Napo. And we needed to identify those and to see how they're working, how they're functioning, and what made them relevant, and what we needed to make sure that they could consume adequately. And so we supported some entrepreneurial initiatives, and the idea was to strengthen the innovations of those local entrepreneurs, and with very much focused on the value chain, with very representative products that are very typical of that region, in this case, Napo province, like cocoa for naranjilla and vanilla and so on. So we identified these value chains and we worked on plans for those particular chains, and then also how to strengthen these initiatives. And with these business initiatives and these value chains, we worked on strengthening the agroecological certification throughout the value chain, and promoting certification, which allowed us to apply very best farming practices to all of these business initiatives. And this was also transferred to the produce and the products that with value added and with good practices for manufacturing and complying and generating value added products, whether for chocolate or for other products that have to do with, for instance, vanilla powder and a series of byproducts derived from these chains. So we also had to make sure that we had the analyses and the local registries, health registries, and to be able to export or even sell in the local and international markets. So many of these were businesses have to be compliant with the international standards and also generate exports directly from the Napo province towards other countries of Europe, Asia, and the United States, and North America in general. And so this was very relevant. And so based on the local um, uh, uh, norms, we had to support them. And we also had to get them some environmental patents through the environmental ministry to be able to have a sustainable production. And community tourism also was an important factor, because many tourist companies or many of these communities could also be registered as tourist centers and complying standards to be able to receive tourists and also to improve their infrastructure for tourism and according to best tourist practices. And so we were also focusing on the improvement of services and for ready for tourism. And so that's how we could work on several representative products. As I said, their businesses, their productive processes, gathering, transformation, and marketing under certifications with labels and seals of agroecology and all of that, with best practices and all the other additional areas. In addition to identifying those local innovations, we had to transfer all of the good practices of the productive processes, transfer that to the local culture. And that had a lot to do with being able to putting on the table this system of the chakra system about the use of the soil. And so we were able to generate an organizational structure with functionality to be able to establish a participatory system that would guarantee the whole process. And this is just as the basis for the agroecological certification. 2 minutes. Through the provincial government, through the corporation of associations for the Amazon chakra, we were able to establish this participatory system. And the next step was to move around with the recognition of the patrimonial system, farming system on a world level. And so this chakra system is a candidate for recognition as an important farming patrimony systems for the world to be recognized by FAO. And so we also worked with the government, with the local governments, and that went from planning and territorial or management and some agreements for conservation restoration. And there we have their competencies and decentralizing competencies from the central government also. And also we work with a trust fund for this now, which has to do with the Napo water. And this is a process that allows us to capitalize resources to be able to finance several initiatives that have to do with local conservation and sustainable use. And so this brought about several effects in numbers. And so we need to highlight the effects of the resources, finance, the production, the conservation areas, and the promotion of all of this, and also FAO's short and medium term support with the Cocoa Intelligent Program and the program for forests and all that, all being implemented from FAO. And now we're developing another plan for implementing special measurements. It's the plan that's called RED. This is all happening in Napo. Let me show you now a brief video. Thank you, Kelvin. Can we see the video, please?
Es el nuestro, la segunda experiencia.
I think they're
Claro.
showing the wrong video, and so they will be showing the correct one in a moment.
Gonzalo, ¿puedes averiguar, por favor, dónde está el video?
Sí.
Aprovecho a comentar que si alguien
I just want to mention that if anyone here would also like to present some kind of questions, please write them in the chat. So, and if you have any comments, please feel free to use the chat, because we're monitoring the chat, and so we'll pick up your comments and questions for the final session of the Q&A part. In general in the business fields. Thank you.
Listo, ¿verdad? Muchísimas gracias, Kelvin.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. It's just a very interesting experience, and I understand that there's a lot of work behind all this, and the energy and the commitment that it all takes from the team and the people involved. So thank you very much, Kelvin. The video was very wonderfully illustrative for all of us. Thank you. So now let's go on to the second experience. And so now we'll hear from the team and from the FAO colleagues who are going to be showing us about a Chilean experience in training concerning training in biodiversity from the program to the territory. And we have two colleagues from the FAO who are going to be giving us this presentation, 10 minutes per each. So Karina Crespo is the coordinator, and she's here with us. She's a training coordinator of the FAO Office for Latin America and the Caribbean. And we also have Marcel Gonnet, who is in charge of communication and monitoring and e-learning of the training division for public policy at FAO, and Karina and my other colleague here. Let me mention that Karina loves to spend time at the beach, sharing with friends and take pictures, right? And knitting, right? And Marcel, Gonnet, when I asked Marcel, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you like to do when you're on your free time? And he says, we'll have twins. I don't really have time for very much. So thank you. Welcome, both of you, our dear colleagues. You're going to share your experiences, and I'll let you know when your time is up. And your time includes the video time. Okay. Thank you, dear colleagues, Karina and Marcel. We're all ears.
Pantalla. Vamos a ver.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
si esto me sale bien.
Let's see if this is good.
A ver. ¿Están viendo ahí la pantalla?
Can you view the screen? Yes. Okay.
Nosotros vamos a compartir
So we're going to share with you
la experiencia de
the
capacitación
experience that we've had in training in biodiversity from the program to the territory. And I want to just mention this as a context. We are a team of several professionals working at FAO as
ofreciendo
uh,
servicios de
you,
asesoramiento para el
we offer
desarrollo de proyectos como a los programas
consultancy for different projects and programs, and we also design methodologies for those trainings through courses, webinars, and other programs, study programs. And since 2008, we already have over 200,000 beneficiaries in the region with over 260 training activities. When we were invited to participate at this fair, first of all, we thought that this was very interesting to have a reflection, an opportunity to reflect on our own practice. So we did put down a list about the different aspects that we thought were interesting to be shared with the colleagues. And so out of the list that we have, we saw several aspects, but I'm only going to mention a few of these, and the other ones will be developed in another slide. So one fundamental aspect, and you will see how the important thing is coordination and dialogue inter-projects, and in order for detecting training development and training capacity. And so we have an e-learning technical team, and we have been able to create a great transportation and going from a face-to-face mode to a totally 100% distance mode. And also we had an articulation with the ministries of the Chilean government, because they have had a high commitment in during the whole process in defining contents and implementing the call to participants, and we were working hand in hand with all of them. And on the other hand, I'd like to share with you that this experience has two important courses: a self-study course for basic knowledge, and then a diploma course, where the participants had to walk away with a product they could then use in the field. And so learning by doing. So it had to do with the management of territory management. And so we've had about, as a result, 45 plans that gave rise to a matrix of good practices, sustainable practices. And let me tell you a little bit how this story started, recapping the whole process. One day we got two projects. They knocked on our door and they said, we want to have a course for training, awareness, and basic knowledge, 101 course for leveling knowledge, a massive course. And then the other one requested the same thing, so we put them together. So instead of having two very similar courses for only awareness, we created one course that was general for awareness, and then also a diploma course that is a little deeper and that generates several stages of activities that are more focused on learning on the field. And so here you see the yellow circles represent the outreach that we have with the self-study course, which doesn't actually need a person, a tutor or anything, but the person goes on its own at its own pace. And then and that is sustainable in time. So it goes beyond the finalization of the project. And the other circles, the blue ones, represent the decision to work very focused on site with these teams that have been very meticulously selected by the governments to participate in this process, and then they can be followed up and they can follow up later. So we have gained a lot from this experience because we have learned quite a bit, a very profound learning experience. And so we have the project for the initiative to conserve threatened species, and we have the network of important sites of the farming patrimony in Chile. And something very important is in the articulate work with the FAO and the different ministries. So what are the objectives that we had undertaken with these two training programs? Well, first of all, to install these good practices in everything that has to do with farming, and also tourist activities and practices, to establish some synergies to be able to have a sustainable management of those natural resources and include methodologies and technologies for sustainable production. And so I will give the floor to Marcel to be able to
Bueno, como les decía Karina,
continue.
dos metodologías de capacitación y la primera.
And they allow us to reach a broad public. The second part of the strategy is a diploma that was launched during the pandemic, and what we did to organize activities, group activities, professional and technicians in location and their knowledge to develop farm plans. What are these farm plans? The first thing that we looked was to map and create a diagnosis of each farm and make a collaborative diagnosis between the groups in different programs and institutions of each regional government and the owners of the farms. What we looked specifically was to have pilot plans for an application. We try to limit production zones, forests, conservation areas, restoration areas, and to identify what public policies we had in the territory. You have the link so you can see the 45 plans that we created. To see the outcome of this process, 45 farm plans training until today has reached more than 600 people. But for us, and this is very important, is a continuous process, and we hope that until 2024, 4,000 people will be trained in Chile. It will project beyond the limits of the projects, time-wise and money-wise. It is very important in online presence. There were indigenous persons participating, and also the role of women, specifically in the self-learning course. We had 56% of women. It has to do with the university side. It's young people and women. We also wanted to put forward the resources for this training because it's a difficult process to train, and we wanted to make it clear that it's important to allocate funds for training at the time of thinking the project, not to make blind budgets. It's one of the first lessons. And also to clarify, these figures had to do with a 4-year process. It implies we are thinking of 4,000 beneficiaries, and that numbers would reach to $19 per beneficiary, which would be inside a normal logic of projects. What we learned is it's necessary to include these training proposals, and when we see a territorial approach, that when we need to local policies in location, we want to break down those isolation and integrating these programs with its training programs. Regarding terms and periods, we need to be ambitious, but we know that it takes time and there's a limitation on how long every project would take.
Bien.
Karina.
Y como reflexiones
Well,
finales,
the conclusion,
nos ha servido mucho todo este
and
proceso
this process has been very useful.
Tenemos como
Of
algunos
wrapping up,
puntos
we
muy,
have some
muy
very
específicos para compartir.
specific
Primero,
points to share.
resaltar
First,
la importancia
to
de la
highlight
colaboración entre
the
proyectos.
relevance of collaboration between
Pensar este
projects,
tipo de
and
estrategias
think
en
that
el momento
this
de
kind of
definir, de
strategies
pensar, de escribir un
when
proyecto,
designing,
ahí yo puedo
when
identificar
writing
qué
about a
capacidades
project,
tenemos
because then
y qué
we can
capacidades vamos a
identify and
desarrollar.
diagnose
Eso
what
después
training we
ver
have already,
con
what
proyectos,
partners
colegas,
do we
para
need
diseñar una
with
estrategia
colleagues,
conjunta
projects to
para no
design
perder
a
más tiempo inventando las
joint
ruedas antes.
strategy,
El
as
foco
not
que
to
le damos siempre son
invent
a
the
la
wheel every time
sensibilización.
and
Entonces,
reach
esta
only the
sensibilidad con un
sensitization
examen más
space.
profundo.
This will allow us
Por
a
un lado, tenemos
deeper
preguntas que
learning.
todavía no tenemos
Another side, we have questions
porque en
without
este momento, por
answers.
ejemplo, tenemos
At this time, we have the
masivo todo
course on
hicimos
self-learning, Master Perfect. We did
con muy buenos resultados.
during 2 years
Ahora,
diploma
¿qué?
courses.
¿Cuál es el
But
próximo
now
paso?
what?
¿Cómo
What's the next
logramos
step?
identificar
How
que hubo un
can we
cambio y una
identify there was a
transformación en la
change, a
comunidad
shift, a
partir de estas
transformation in that community
Eso es una
from
instancia
these
que todavía
learnings?
que seguir
This is something that
trabajando,
we
viendo
still
cómo
have to
esto se va
work on and see how
Y por
to
último,
sustain
la
this over
reflexión más
time.
importante
And the most
que
important
queremos
reflection that
compartir
we
es que para
need to
nosotros
share with you is
este
that
enfoque
for us,
inspirador y esta conversación
this
entre
combined
proyectos abre las
focus
puertas
between
para
projects
empezar a pensar el
opens
desarrollo de
doors
capacidades
to
de una forma
thinking
más profunda y más
development of
sostenible.
capacities in a
Sabemos que
deeper and
un
more
cambio
sustainable
puntual
way.
no
Or a
alcanza con
change of
cursos de 2
behavior,
meses.
a
Necesitamos
2-month course
procesos
is
más
not enough.
profundos
We
y para
need
eso
deeper
existen
processes,
diferentes
and there are different
metodologías.
methodologies.
Proponemos la construcción
And
de
we
proyectos o
propose
programas de capacitación que
building
permitan una
training
intervención
programs that can
aplicada a la
allow
práctica en
intervention
condiciones de terreno.
in a
Y
more
ahora,
practical oriented courses
bueno, estas son
in
las personas
location.
participantes de la
These are the
FAO, han
persons
sido muchas,
who
las
who took
organizaciones,
part
y ahora
from
quisiera
FAO and the
compartir videos con
organizations.
los
And
testimonios.
now we would like to share video with the
Ya, voy a
witnesses.
compartir. Ahí está.
Tiene un enfoque también integrador en cuanto a forestación.
This is an integrated approach. This allows us to incorporate all our knowledge, ones and others.
Generando también un plan de proyectos de inversión.
We created an investment projects plan, and also to broaden the work towards grassroots organizations in location.
Integrar todos esos conocimientos en mi día a día.
To include all those knowledge on a daily basis. The economic programs, it helped me to strengthen my knowledge. And
Muchas gracias, Karina y Marcel.
thank you very much, Karina and Marcel.
En la experiencia, estamos pasaditos la hora, ¿no?
We are running short of time. Previous experiences took more than 10 minutes. Now we're going with an external guest, external from FAO. I welcome and thank you very much to Cecilia Rivas from Venezuela. She is a general captain of the Kariña communities of the Imataca Forest Reserve and also a representative of the Forestal Indigenous Tukupu company. Welcome, Cecilia. Thank you very much for being with us today. You will also have 10 minutes, and when there are 2 minutes remaining, I will tell you. Go ahead. She's speaking her native language. Good morning. I am a Kariña indigenous representative. I'm a general captain of the Imataca Forest Reserve. Thank you for your invitation, and I'm very happy to take part in this here and show our experiences in the Imataca Forest Reserve. I apologize because some words I will not be able to pronounce better because I use both languages, and I apologize if I'm wrong in some words. Currently, at the Imataca Forest Reserve, we are Kariña indigenous. We used to walk a lot in that forest, and besides that, we were never paid attention because we were walkers from one place to the other. In 2002, we were recognized with our national identity card to have a registry in Venezuela for us. So I as an indigenous person supported my indigenous sisters. They were discriminated based on gender and race. They were mistreated and they were humiliated. The Kariña indigenous woman at the Imataca Forest Reserve. In 2015, I was elected because of the training I gave to my indigenous sisters. I was elected the first time an indigenous woman in Kariña. Then we made progress. There were private companies that were harming the forest. So we decided between our grandparents, our indigenous sisters, and then FAO came along. They made a consultation with our communities and with our grandparents. We decided to create our companies. And now we have the Tukupu company, and we are working with 50 men, 50 women, and currently on February 14, on Valentine's Day 2020, we signed a partnership with FAO, and the most exciting thing was that for the first time here in Venezuela, there's an indigenous company that we never had that before in Venezuela, and they took into account our indigenous origin in Venezuela. And with that support, we have reached in this training, we had made progress, and in the communities, there are 12 indigenous communities in the forest reserve. There are 2,500 inhabitants, 10 women in the company, and there's 50% men and women taking part. Then from that support and training for our sister indigenous sisters, they nominated as guardians of the forest and then to preserve, to maintain their culture, the language, and the livelihood, and not to lose their culture. It was signed that woman will be the one guarding the forest reserve. We have 10 nurseries in each community. Most are women and also men. The most striking thing for our Tukutu company is that after the partnership was signed, we were given 2 months to test if we could work or not. And at that time, the pandemic came along and we couldn't get out of our habitat or of the communities, and women started working all along the pandemic without resources, without food, and those women working for today, that the Tukutu company can represent those women at the forest reserve of Mataca. Now we have resources with the support of FAO, and these days we were supported for support from the British Embassy. I thank for that support for our indigenous sisters so they can sustain themselves and their habitat. And also there was other companies that has left our forest empty without new plants because there were new private sector companies in our communities, and we couldn't oppose that because the government was granting those concessions to private companies. So the fishing areas, the hunting areas where we had our food, we didn't get any more. Now we are reforesting, we're restoring the forest and our territory for good living in our mountain. We have the canucos, what we use our food, which is cassave and other products. We are planting cacao, coffee, other fruits to have other kinds of food in our territory. Also, with the support we had, more than 80 hectares were given on loan, so we have a better environment due to the situation, and we can use the rainy season and planting where we didn't have trees. With all of this, the work from our indigenous brothers and sisters, we have shown other organizations, and one day arrived OIM with the FAO to a community we have there in the center of the municipality, and we reminded us that our sisters work, they gave us some products, corn and other tools to work, and 65 families were benefited and more than 1,300 members. And you can see our indigenous sisters, the need they have for how they live in nature, and before that we had our roads. We couldn't move, we didn't have roads or paths. We had to carry food in a motorcycle, and nowadays we have also a truck. Other Permones brothers were also benefited from the OIM support we are showing here, where they showed to those organizations that if indigenous Kariña brothers were displaced, many people said that indigenous brothers did not work and we showed this organization that they can work. And we also have 17 new plants in the municipality where we live for consumption for Creoles, indigenous also, at the lower cost, so they can benefit the needs they have, the needs our people have. That's a gift that we brought. That's where we brought our products to sell in our town to cover all other needs of our peoples. And with all of these, that we approved to OIM and FAO, we had a cassave sites abandoned, and we recovered them, these cassave processing sites, to have more resources to activate our food for sale and for our municipality. We received a kit, some kits to distribute to 5 communities that had a greater impact to sell cassave and other products from cassave. I also have a radio show, bilingual. I speak in both languages, and everything that the Tukupu company does is broadcasted in that radio every Thursday, so the municipality can know what our indigenous brothers are doing. So they're not, people now can no longer say that indigenous people do not work, and that's for our struggle and for us not to be discriminated against. We also have a course, a training course on the rights of children, indigenous children rights, sexual diversity, which is a matter that I enjoyed very much from all of it. And since with that training, to take it to my community so my community can know, we know a lot. So we were also given gift with a truck. We didn't have any transportation. Now it gives us a big help to develop our community. Also for health, it has improved. It has improved in indigenous communities. We have products as well as drinks, a sweet drink and a wine-like drink. We have honey and we have tamu, which are cigars, natural from our community. We also have a seeds bank to store all seeds for the future. We have also here my friend Ichu. I call him Ichu. His name is Bonte, and he accompanied us with everything that has to do with our forest. I am very thankful for his visit, and we are expecting him again, and our friend Mesa, that he was there with the first project. He was making some workshops in Caracas, and to thank everybody that helped for the development of our community, because the work that our indigenous brothers is very good. We hope to see you everybody there. Thank you. Thank you, Cecilia. Excellent experience. Congratulations to you, Cecilia, and all the men and women involved in this project that showed that to have a great commitment for transformation of their lives where you currently live. We are running short of time. I will give the floor directly. I will invite the 2 commentators that will have 3 to 5 minutes very quickly to comment on the three experiences. The first commentator is George Jaksch from outside FAO. He's an economist and agronomist, chairman of the board of directors of Biodiversity Partnership Mesoamerica. He has a professional experience in 4 continents regarding environmental matters. Can I also tell that George, welcome, and we're about to sign an MOU, and we are looking forward to that cooperation. George, welcome. Thank you for being with us. You have the floor, 5 minutes. When 1 minute remains, I will let you know. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to take part, although very briefly, in today's event. My first reaction after hearing these magnificent experiences that are exemplary is of great admiration and many congratulations to all that have collaborated. 3 projects, what happened in Napo, in Ecuador, was an extraordinary experience, a region that has suffered many problems. In a relatively short time, magnificent projects were developed. For example, the good agricultural practices with more than 1,000 families taking part. Also, the concept of ecological and agricultural tourism in the area, with a result after 6 years of work. Magnificent. Moving to the Chile, totally different, but also very valuable, because when we have heard today from the relevance of transforming our activities to recognize environmental risks as climate change and the loss of biodiversity to transform, we need to learn to know the issue and then develop the solutions on site. That is what was done in Chile. Their model is a very interesting for all countries in the region to train people in their different positions, including public sector employees. Many congratulations. And then what we have heard from Cecilia Rivas, their experience in Venezuela, their community also is an extraordinary experience, because you can know very well all the difficulties of the indigenous communities in the region, and above all, indigenous women. And here, that woman, the Kariña woman, have achieved to have a good association and to have a company, Tukupu, the first indigenous forest company in Venezuela. Is a very special achievement, and congratulations to Cecilia and to all her colleagues. There are some common characteristics in these 3 big projects. There are cooperations that previously you cannot imagine between public sector employees, indigenous communities, and specialists. The role of women in all 3 projects has been very high. The level of participation, a special achievement, and then the economic aspect, developing new sources of income and improving the financial situation of the people. The special role in 2 projects of the participation of indigenous peoples, contributing with their knowledge and their solidarity. Those are big achievements. Also, the territory anchoring of the projects. They have focused in areas and have achieved a positive impact in those places. I think that also present and future impact of these projects must be mentioned, because we have seen demonstrations as conservation of the environment and the well-being of population go hand in hand, and that cooperation is indispensable. However, I would also like to comment that is very important as a lesson to to extract two things. First, biodiversity issue and climate change. They add to a environmental crisis. There's a big challenge that demands those transformations and many more, as Julio said at the beginning. Also, as an organization, companies must be involved in these matters. It's important to think how you can in different places to achieve participation of private sector companies and state companies and also the communities in education for your message to reach children at different levels of education, and why not that authorities support in a methodical way to these activities, because we know there are risks in these remote regions, especially of illegalities. So we need the presence of the state as a strong partner in these communities. Thank you very much. Thank you, George, for your participation. Let's move now to the next commentator, a colleague of ours. She works here at the regional offices. It's Peter Van Europe. He's part of the Region 3 region initiative for the Caribbean. And I was asked to do a personal comment on the colleagues. I can also comment Peter. Peter is a cyclist. Sometimes I find her cycling. He also likes to swim and to dive. She has her own orchard where he has his fruit. Thank you very much, Peter, and you can comment now.
Primero quiero agradecer a Kelvin, Karina, Marcel y la capitana Cecilia por sus presentaciones que creo que nos motivaron a todos. Hoy estoy en realidad reemplazando a Soledad.
Today I'm really replacing Soledad, and there are some items that I have taken down from the different presentations. The first one is that undoubtedly a sustainable production is very important to have the ecosystemic services. In fact, we cannot have a production that will be sustainable in time unless we take care of the soil, the water, and taking into account biodiversity and all that. And those ecosystems, including biodiversity, need to be managed and protected, both within and out and without the farming systems, such as protected areas and forests and forests themselves, and the farming lands and so on, and the water from the basins. And this sustainable management is also in the hands of the farmers themselves. And so by protecting the ecosystem services, we can have more durable and sustainable production, and also they could increase other productive activities, such as the case in the Napo province, and with tourism activities and sustainable businesses. As we have seen these examples already, and this is how the rural population can increase their income and improve their lives, and may also contribute to sustainability for the environment, and also understand bearing in mind the climate change. So the important thing is to be able to accomplish this. It is very important that the farming sectors and the environment sectors work together jointly. This is one of the greatest challenges and initiatives that we currently have in our work. Also, in order to improve and to take advantage of these interesting manage knowledge, the successful experiences are systematized and should be transferred to others through training programs, as the examples that we have seen from the things you have presented here. The important thing is that how this training program was built based on two projects that were apparently in two very different areas, but that only shows how you can actually program training training programs that are sensible. And so the success and the experiences of those communities that have applied all this knowledge shows that it is very possible. And so based on this very good experience, the area can also be a lot more productive, 6 times over than the original plan. And so local communities are both in Venezuela and other countries of the region can actually implement these new systems, these new examples and models, and with we can contribute to this network of projects also. Another reflection here for me is how we can integrate the mechanisms and the public policy in such a way that the sustainable management of the forest can be actually improved on a national level, and also improve the socioeconomic conditions of the people who live in those areas. And also it's very important to find the facilitators for these changes in the groups that we've mentioned. The decisions were made by the men of the community, but in this particular case, the community itself decided that it was very important to have a woman leader and be given the success of their activities. And so also the fact of having make the environment a business, and so that it would involve the whole community and all the families and not just certain privileged groups. So I hope my comments are useful for this discussion, and thank you for your attention. Thank you, Peter. And thank you very much, Peter, for your comments. Gonzalo just gave me some questions that have been put on the chat here on the screen. So one question for Kelvin and one for Cecilia as well. Questions. First, the question to Kelvin, I'll first read the questions for Kelvin from Carolina Bayona. Could you please explain a little better the chakra system as a farming world patrimony and or heritage, farming heritage? And another question, what were the greatest challenges that, and also therefore learning from that experience of conservation and sustainable use for living well? And also for Cecilia to also think about her answer, I have a question from Carolina Bayona as well. And Cecilia, question, how did you develop the good living concept for the mountain, and what's that? Can you explain that? And so let's start with Kelvin. Maybe Kelvin can answer these questions, and then Cecilia will answer her questions. Thank you very much. Yes, I'll try to answer the first question about the chakra, Amazon chakra system. It's a traditional system. It's a millenary system that our proposal was based on this chakra system to be able to achieve what I mentioned with all the business initiatives and all the application of the good practices of agroecologic practices. It's a very important and rooted system in the indigenous cultures and peoples of the province of Napo, and it's a production system that is itinerant and does combine different areas, forest and then recess areas and then forest again. And so they have been developed by the Quechua women. They are the ones who lead this development of the chakra system and the gardens and to provide food for their families, and then whatever surplus will be marketed. And so there you have some transfer of knowledge based on the Chagra mamas, which are the women, the Quechua women who are in charge. But the system has something more and more important on a wider level about the Amazon basin, which is a very adequate system for the use of the soil and the fertility of the soil, which in the Amazon region, this is a very valuable thing that gets lost very easily. And so this system has conserved the fertility of the Amazon soil in time, and it has allowed for a sustainable use of the soil and biodiversity and conserve biodiversity. And that's what the most important part of the chakra system. On the concerning the other question about the challenges, yes, we had many challenges, in fact, in developing this initiative. I think the main one was the challenge, the facing an economic crisis around 2015 when the project started. And somehow we were able to face that challenge and that crisis because the budgets had to be reduced because from the national incentives, which were actually contributing to the development of this proposal. And so we had to work on a more local initiative because of that. So we focused a lot with on the decentralized incentives that the local and provincial governments had. And so we strengthened that, it's those incentives, and we worked to focus on that to be able to have the sustainable production and conservation, of course. Another challenge was the changes of authorities. We have 3 government administration changes, local government changes, local administration changes. And so this we had this trust fund that was widened. And so the changes in those authorities and representatives of the fund was also very important because the FODESMA, which is the trust fund, is actually fed by the public and private funds. And so we needed to, this was the challenge here. And so we all had to finally face towards the end of the project, that was the pandemic. But in the end, we were able to develop these virtual shops and digitalizing and also e-commerce to be able to sell the products of the local producers. And finally, I wish to mention that we're about to publish a systematization of the Napo experience, and we expect to have this in the next few days. And we will be able to share this with all the details of the experience, the process, and the lessons learned. Thank you very much. Okay, Kelvin, very, very much to the point. Thank you. Now, Cecilia, please share with us the answer to your question. Cecilia, you have the floor. Well, the harmony with nature is an important element. When we work on our inventory, we see that we have our birds, we have our basin, we have our elements, and we have to say that the timber cannot be cut here or there because this is where we have our birds. And so first of all, respect our land, our Mother Earth, and this is the space for good living and living in harmony. And so, and to have our hunting grounds and places where we can mostly live within this reserve. We have these huts, we have palm roofs, and so we have the abundance of our palm trees. Then that's what we use for our housing, and so we take care of those palm trees and we take care of those spaces. And we also have to take care of the wood and the timber that we have in our fruits, in our trees, our fruit trees that we have in the mountains too. So we say that we need to take care of our food, our everything that we have, and you know, we have space for everything, for all of our activities, depending, for instance, even fishing, and then we have to go hunting, and then we have to go 3-4 days out to hunt, and then so we need to take care of our spaces so that we can develop our activities and to have a good life and defend the concept of good living. So thank you very much, Cecilia, for your experiences. And we have come to the end of this session. We're coming to the end of the session, and I don't have any other questions for us. So I would say that I only have to then thank all of you who gave shared your experiences, the commentators and the participants. We've had about 70 people with us this morning, and between the Zoom and the streaming. And I would like to, and this has been recorded, this session has been recorded and will be available at the website. And I invite you to watch this session, those of you who haven't been able to attend. And also, we're going to have a 15-minute break. And then at at 12:30, we invite you to join us for the final presentation, where we're going to hear several FAO officers speak to us about innovation. And Gonzalo will be giving you the link for the final presentation. And thank you all for being here with us today. And so we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Hasta luego.
Okay, thank you.